Welcome back everyone. As most of you know, the iPhone XS Max is one of those phones that came out a little while ago, a couple of years ago, and I can definitely tell you this phone still has a lot of capability. It's a beautiful phone in so many different ways, and in the later part of 2021, I've actually been kind of critical about this phone, and I'll get into why in a little bit. You may have already seen some of those videos, but I will tell you, if you have the XS Max, I still think it's a good phone for the most part if you currently own it, but I would recommend going up to an iPhone 11 Pro Max, at the very least. It's a much better phone than the XS Max, more powerful, better battery life, so many different things across the board, but I do think the XS Max is still a pretty decent phone when it comes down to it. Now, if you want to pick one of these things up, I'll leave them linked down below. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now, a couple of different things actually went ahead and changed up with this specific phone in this specific later part of this year. Two major things are the brand new iPhones, the iPhone 13s, and the next iOS version, which directly impacted this phone. Now with the iPhones, nothing really crazy happened. This phone went down in price a little bit in the used market, but it's still roughly around the same thing. Like, it's not a really big difference, maybe like $30 to $50 difference from what it was before to what it is now. But throughout time, I think the next year, it's going to definitely downgrade in the price tag, which is great. So you're going to get a better valued phone, which is awesome. But on top of that, I've compared this iPhone against all the other iPhone 13s, and I will tell you, one of the best things about the XS Max is the build quality and the display. Those two things still look very good, and when you look at the XS Max and you look at the iPhone 13s, there's very little difference in terms of how they feel, how they look. Of course, the 13 Pro Max feels much more premium than the XS Max, but because they both have notches and everything, it doesn't really feel that much different, to be honest. But the displays on the new iPhones are so much better than the XS Maxes, but for a 60Hz OLED panel, it actually does still look really, really good, which is awesome. On the outside, everything else the same. Speed differences, obviously the new ones were better, and they were smoother as well. But the XS Max still a very good performing and good, feeling phone overall too. So you can't really go wrong with either one of these, but the XS Max's performance is still pretty good for the most part. Now the next thing with iOS 15, this was a little bit more of a difference if I do say so myself. I've installed a majority of the betas on this iPhone as well as all the official versions that have came out so far, and I've already reviewed them. And I do think the XS Max is kind of like the cutoff point to where the iOS 15 update is kind of okay and where it isn't okay at all. I would say phones older than the iPhone 10 are kind of like, I would not recommend installing it at all. And even with the XS Max, I would still not recommend installing iOS 15 on your specific iPhone XS Max. You're probably going to be running into a lot of issues, and the battery life isn't good, and there's just so many stability issues with iOS 15 right now that I would recommend, waiting out. Even with my 12 Pro, I have not installed iOS 15 yet. So for sure, I would recommend staying away from the update as of right now, but I do think that within the next couple of weeks, maybe even the next month or two before the end of this year, it should be in a good position where the iPhone XS Max at the very least will be very similar to the stability of iOS 14. I think battery issues and stuff are still probably going to happen, but the XS Max has handled iOS 15 pretty decently, much better than a lot of other iPhones that were older than it. So that's a very good thing for sure, but I would still not recommend installing it. Now ultimately, those are the main things that have pretty much happened with this specific device, all the improvements and updates and all that stuff. I do think, like I mentioned before, going up to something like an iPhone XS Max, if you have an older iPhone, is a good idea, but I would recommend taking it up a notch. I would recommend going to the 11 Pro Max. That's a much better phone than this iPhone, to be honest. But like I mentioned, if you currently have the XS Max and you've made it work for you this long, I would recommend keeping it and keeping it for as long as you can, especially until the iPhone 14s come out. So that pretty much covers it up for the most part. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.